Firstly, when the internet arrived, there were things changed, but also many things remain the same. The qualities that it takes to become a great doctor or a great nurse are, in fact, the same as they ever were. And the qualities of a student in terms of what they need to learn and the process through which they need to go in order to learn that. They need to apply themselves to complex topics, that they need to master those topics and then apply them to specific clinical situations. Those things actually remain the same. They haven't changed. Doctors now use different technologies, etc., but in the end, the critical thinking, the compassion, the empathy, those things have remained. And those are things that are eminently desirable in doctors and in nurses that we as patients look for. However, what I think initially what the internet promised was a sort of a democratization of access to high quality content. So, for example, a distinguished professor at a university in the UK could give lectures, and those lectures could be seen and heard very easily by medical students all over the world. So all of a sudden we saw that change, the ability to access the very highest quality content from wherever you were in the internet. Commercially, that hasn't really become very much of a thing, and you saw various universities trying to create a sort of a global brand through that. The other massive area of change that the internet enabled was through online assessment, the ability through the internet to deliver high quality, instantly assessed questions. So the ability for a faculty member, for example, using a bank of questions to deliver those questions and have them marked in real time, and those results returned to students again in real time. That was a huge change in how we were able to assess students and hence understand how they were learning. So whilst the sort of the underlying substrate of what it takes to be a great doctor or a great nurse didn't change, some of the tools did change that enabled us to sort of understand student progress and for students to access materials that they would not otherwise have been able to access. Now, how AI is going to transform medical education, I think, is still very much an open question. And what we see is the types of change relate again probably to the ability to deliver to individual students, regardless of location, more material. So any student can be using some generative AI tool, ChatGPT, Claude, etc., can, as it were, have a tutor at their side. Now, I think that optimistically, this helps resolve the dilemma that was set up in Ben Bloom's the 2 Sigma problem. How do you deliver individualized instruction, which is the most effective form of instruction, in an economic way to hundreds of thousands of students? And I think that if you're an AI booster, what you would say is that AI will more and better understand what students are thinking and why they're making the mistakes that they're making, and will be able to interpret their responses so that this AI tutor can provide guidance to that student and improve their outcomes, etc. I think if you're a sort of an AI doomster, you would say a lot of that material may be rather superficial, rather glib. Currently, a lot of the models are very boosting and supportive. Wow, that's amazing, what a brilliant answer. And the ability for what is essentially a predictive engine to truly, quote unquote, understand what a student is thinking and why they're thinking it, and do that in a way that's abstracted from the physical presence of the student and the teacher, means that essentially students will receive rote-like answers. I also think that one of the less positive things that we're possibly seeing is that the role of any type of assessment where the student has access to the internet is now compromised. I was talking to a faculty member in Galway. They said they had this fantastic course. It was really good, and they had the learning objectives were fantastic. And then ChatGPT came along and ruined it because they were no longer able to trust the outcome of their assessments. So I think, where we are today with AI in medical education is seeing very, very widespread usage by students. What I think we're not seeing is, we're beginning to see little bursts of this, is a consistent and through-going understanding of the role of AI as a teaching tool and a complement for what highly trained educators do. But that journey is ongoing, and medical educators, nursing educators will can and will form how AI is used, and they need to be very proactive in shaping it rather than being sort of the recipients of it. So I think we're, as it were, at the beginning of the beginning in terms of what the future of the internet holds.